I don't remember who prayed last time. I'm not sure.
Um, I think last time you prayed, I gave the spiritual thought.
Cool. Yeah, I'll give a thought. So yeah, if you want to pray.
Yes, sir.
Awesome. Do it.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful for this opportunity that Zach and I have to get together and to discuss this case. We're grateful for the opportunity that we have to be students in thy university, and for that opportunity and all that grants us. We're grateful for the opportunity that we have to get together and discuss this case, and ask that we might know how to best grow in understanding and in what this has to offer, and how we can best inform one another on its merit. We're grateful for all that we've been blessed with, and ask that we might move forward with knowing how to best serve thee and those around us. We're grateful for all that we have, Father, and say this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. So yesterday I had this thought come to me. My wife's kind of in a funk lately, and we were talking last night, and she asked me the question, like, when am I gonna ever feel like I'm good enough, or when am I gonna be good enough? And I just kind of told her that this lifetime, it's not about being good enough, and that's like not why we're here. And God didn't send us to the earth to be good enough. What He did send us to the earth to do is to progress. And so I just said, if we focus every day on being better today than we were yesterday, that's all really God has asked us to do. And so it was a really nice conversation, but that's a great thought, because I think we all think that, when am I going to be there? When I'm there, is it going to be like a more of a pass fail, like you didn't do it, sorry? And I don't think God's like that. I think God has given us this opportunity to progress, and obviously there's certain things we have to do to progress, but I don't think He's going to be like, all right, well, you had the worst thought in your mind at this time in your life, and just tallies them up at the end, or you did this, and just, I think it's more of, did we come to this earth, and did we better our situation? Did we progress? And so that was kind of like a heart to heart that we had last night, and it's just been something that I've been thinking about lately. And I know that if we live our lives that way, and we try to become better each day, that in the last day, God's going to say, you've been a faithful servant. So that was just kind of a thought I had. I hope that made sense.
For sure. And I spent a long time, like you were saying, focusing on being good enough, or like, I think that carries a lot of I don't know, for me it carries a lot of shame. It carries a lot of, I don't know, forgiveness, like judging myself more critically than other people, like, because I can be, and for me, like, when I'm in that space, it's usually because, like, I have a big ego, and I'm thinking, like, that God has more in store for me, or I should be better than, like, it's all right for you to have a crappy day. It's all right for you to, like, not be doing that well. But for me, like, don't you know who I am? Like, I kind of thing, don't you know what God's plan for me is? And I have to remember, like, to stay humble, to be, I don't know, for me, like, that's what humility, I think, a lot of times entails, is remembering that I'm just like I don't know, that we're all children of our Father in heaven, and we're all here to do the same thing, and keep myself grounded in the grander scheme of things, and not get lost in the day to day. But like you said, having having a more of a long-term perspective in mind.
Yeah, for sure. Because I think when we think about it like how the world thinks about it, it's like heaven and hell. You know, you're bad, you go to hell. You're good. You know, if we think about it that way, it's like
black and white.
It's like it makes God sound so harsh, you know. But then when we realize that He's just sent us here to become better, you know, it really helps me understand like how much God loves us, you know. Like my dad, like an example is my dad has a construction company, and he told me, I thought my whole life I'd take it over. He told me very plainly, I want you to go to college because I want you to be better than what I was. And so it was really hard for me, but I knew that he wanted me to progress here. And so it's been a blessing to be up here. So I think it's the same with God. But yeah.
Well, maybe you can do both.
Yeah, now my brother actually is probably going to buy it out. So my another brother, yeah, his wife is one of the top sellers of LuLaRoe. Like she started off, was one of the first in Vegas to do it, and just is making crazy money on skirts and leggings, like insane amount of money. And yeah, so they're gonna buy the business, and he's gonna run it. So yeah, but it's like crazy. Like they're building a huge house, like a 7,000 square foot house. I mean, they're like raking it in. He just bought a new truck, I think it's like a $60,000 truck. I mean, just like nuts. I'm like, dang, must be nice. Must be nice. But yeah.
Well, and that's another thing. If I'm going to compare myself on that stuff, because I get the same way where my friends or my brothers or my family, like I like that saying or that quote, comparison is the thief of joy. And if I'm so focused on what I don't have or what you have, and I lose sight of like the fact that, you know, I'm doing exactly how God wants me to be doing. You know, if God wanted me to be doing anything differently, I'd be doing that. If that makes any sense, like just having some acceptance about where I'm at, and like I'm like if God wanted me to be somewhere else, making more money with a different girl, with a different life, you know, like I probably would be doing that because, you know, I think God got a bigger say than what I've got, and for whatever reason, I'm here now and trying to see what I can learn through it.
For sure. I feel you.
So.
Well, I gotta go grab my kid real quick. He ran in the kitchen. He's playing with stuff, so.
Oh yeah. I'll be right back. All right.
We're gonna stay in here, bud. All right, cool. All right, you don't play with that stuff. Yeah. All of a sudden, I hit stuff. No, it was just like a fork, but I still could hurt you.
Yeah.
I just started hearing, and I was thinking, oh, I hope he's not into the knives and the. Uh-huh. Here, you can drink this. All right, cool. So should we take a look at this? Am I frozen? Oh. Huh. All right, sorry. Something went wrong with my internet.
You're good. Is this still the same recording?
Yeah, it looks like it. It just says pause, stop, still. So I think it's still recording and all good.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there.
Word. Well, should we tackle this thing?
Yeah, let's go for it. I don't think this one's gonna be as hard as like the last couple have been. Like, I think it's more opinionated, less numberish. But
yeah. Okay, so the first question: what made Noodles and Company an attractive opportunity for Aaron Kennedy in 1995?
If I like remember right, I think he was at like this, just at this noodle shop, right? He's at this noodle shop and he's like, wait a second, like every culture eats noodles. And so that was kind of like the initial thing he was thinking. Right.
Yeah,
and so that was kind of like, he's like, I should start my own and be able to do noodles from all parts of, all different regions, and it could be a hit.
Yeah, I'm trying to find what it. Yeah, in August '93, after he had enjoyed a tasty meal at a small Asian noodle diner in New York City, he talks about, it was the first time I had seen different influences from Southeast Asia, Vietnamese, Japanese, Thai, and Chinese all on the same menu with the central theme of noodles. And yeah, like I remember him saying, like everybody from peasants to like kings in different countries or continents and in different times, like have always
like
noodles.
It wasn't just like different countries. It was like all demographics eat noodles
right
in some form. It's like pretty crazy.
Yeah. Trying to think if there's anything else that was appealing. Well, and like what it was, I don't know that this is really relevant, but like in the end of the case, it was talking about how like what it's better to be like first in market or best in market. And I think that statement right there kind of describes that you don't have to be first to market, you have to be best in market. Because like he visited that small noodle shop in New York City and just improved upon that and scaled that, and like he wasn't the first person to open a noodle shop with a menu of influences from all these different countries. Like that's where he got the idea from. So it kind of proves that you don't have to be
and he has that experience in marketing. I mean, he worked for great companies, the Oscar Mayer company, or
Pepsi.
I mean, when you think of like great marketing, you think of Pepsi. I mean, and he was involved in some of the major marketing schemes for Pepsi. So I think he saw this idea, and that's part of why like the light bulb went off. Was like he's like, I could make this so much better. I know how to present it better.
Yeah. So what caused the company's early struggles, and why do you think so?
I think one of the struggles he had was that he was like mentioned earlier, he's a marketer. He was never really involved in operations. And so when you don't have your operations figured out, it's gonna be a huge struggle. And that was something he had to figure out, is how to run and operate a restaurant.
Yeah. I'm trying to think of, or trying to look at where it gives some like statistics. I mean, it talked about after they got back from that trip to Chicago and they got back to the basement being flooded, and they were deciding to make those like changes, and how the effect was like the effect was so quick, but I think like one of the things that they did was try to appeal to more of like the culture of the restaurant. Like they got to work, it said that night to paint. Um, I think they started like revamping the menu, it said at that point.
Yeah, they were just like they had to go through almost a complete culture change of this restaurant. Like they just changed the whole culture of it.
Yeah, I like it says that we shifted from steam tables to saute lines that kind of allowed for, I don't know, the sauteing process to create smells and like just that visual and seeming fresh and seeming like, I don't know, was cool. I think they just started focusing more on the consumer.
Yeah, they knew where they wanted the people that they wanted in their restaurants, and they kind of focused on that group. Also, something else I noticed was what I remember them saying they didn't even know that in the first 4 months they were losing money until like the fourth month because they weren't on par with their accountants. And I could see how that could probably be a huge struggle. Like you don't know you're losing money and you just keep running this restaurant. Like that's
in a way that's losing money. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it says they found out like the first month they lost like 18 grand and then 12 grand and they lost a lot of money.
For sure. Like, yeah, if you're running a restaurant, you're losing money and you don't know it, it's probably not a very good thing.
Yeah.
And it was hard. I imagine this would be hard because it's not like they're running like you're not running a franchise. You're running a whole new concept that you created. You know, when you run a franchise, you have people there to say, this is the atmosphere we want. This is how we're going to do it. When you're doing it yourself, you're trying to create that whole culture yourself.
Yeah. Well, and I think that like it also talks about them bringing in like a higher caliber of managers. And it says we worked hard to make them feel like owners by providing equity and profit sharing opportunities. And I think that experience can be super beneficial and super effective for creating that environment where people have some sense of ownership. Like I'm not only trying to earn a paycheck. Like I'm invested in the quality of this company because my pay scale is contingent on like how I present myself, how I am training like the line staff that's underneath me, like how I'm engaging with customers, like everything essentially comes back to, I don't know, motivating through money, motivating through sense of ownership. Like all the bonus structure that it talked about them having with daily, weekly, and a 28-day, like how they're doing, what kind of revenue they're bringing in. Like there's just a lot of investment and a lot of like, I think, ways that they provide like a sense of ownership within the company. And so it's funny when they talk about how things turned around like after all that happened, and you have to think about the impact that would have on the impact that would have with the entire company and organization as a whole. And when they implemented that structure, how everything started to go better.
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, I think it's cool that they recognize that managers played a key role, and they were like, all right, we're going to offer like some equity stake to managers, and that'll help boost their performance as well because they're invested in this thing. So,
right.
Yeah, I thought that was really neat as well. Yeah, you're okay. No, not right now. He keeps telling me to switch the shows. He always gets mad. He gets on one show and then he gets on to the next one like 5 minutes later. And I'm like, dude, I can't. I'm in this mood now. I'm like, you pick one, that's the one you watch.
You pick one. We're watching one show.
Yeah. So I make him watch one.
There you go.
All right. So then.
There you go.
What role should franchising play in the company's growth? I think that franchising could help. I think it could help them out like a ton because they don't have to the franchisees puts up the capital, and so they can have the stores without having to put up the capital, and I think that helps a ton. And then they have already established this like kind of a winning culture, so now they just have to train the franchisee about their culture. But I mean, there's a lot of things that come with it. You got to have a real estate person, and you got to have. I meant they were saying something like that, a vice president and other things. But I thought it could play a huge role for them.
Yeah, I don't know what I thought about that. Because when you think about the growth that they've had being so contingent on their commitment to like the employee, the commitment to the managers, the commitment to the consumers, like I don't know how likely or how able they are to replicate all of those systems, all of those like strategies to I don't know, to replicate that on a bigger scale, like without having that direct level of involvement, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think yeah. He's mad. I think they would franchising would help them to gain scale. So, hey, you're okay. He saw the minions, and now he's mad at me now because now he saw the minions. So, it's been a rough day for him. Yeah, I think franchising helps them gain scale just because they can invest their money other places, and so that's like an awesome thing. And I think it's I mean, franchise worked out for McDonald's. I guess it doesn't work out for everyone, but like McDonald's figured out the real estate part of it and stuff, and it worked really well for them.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think it's sad for them in order for them to grow to their goal of 300 stores. If they don't franchise, that they would need to have 80 million in capital, and if they did franchise, they would only need to have 25 million. And so there for sure is there for sure is like, I don't know, a draw to having franchises. But I guess my concern is like, what would be forgone? Like, what would they potentially miss out on? Like, would they be like, certainly they've been successful like, I don't know that it's just due to the food. I don't know that it's just due to anything. I think they have like these operations in place with the management, with the employees, with all these people. And if they're not able to continue to effectively duplicate that, it might be hard to continue to be profitable. And you have to wonder like how much of their success is based on those operations and on those systems. And so just with what it's talked about, like with all that has gone into taking care of like the supply chain and the operations, streamlining things, but particularly on like an employee front, like how able do you think they're able to replicate that if it's franchised out and they don't really have as much say? Like that's my only concern, if that makes any sense.
And it does cause like a ton of work, because you have to make sure that these guys are running the franchises like
exactly how you want them to run them.
Right. And that takes a lot of work, because now you got to hire people to do the trainings, and you got to bring these guys in every once in a while to make sure they're doing it right. And so it brings a lot of work. And like, you got to bring in the real estate people, and because you don't want to lose. People think like franchising simple. It's like, all right, you get this person and they just run they run the business the same, but people struggle with the direction a lot of times. And so sometimes you lose your whole business. You don't like lose the equity stake, but you lose control of it because these people are not doing the things that they're supposed to be doing.
For sure.
In your restaurants. And so, so that's like really could be really rough. But I think I was reading about the thing that they did where they were having people come in. They were giving employees bonuses, and what they would do is they would have someone come in and like eat the food, and if it was like not on par, they would tell them. But if it was great and it was just like how they wanted it to be, the employees in that restaurant would get bonuses. It's like surprise mystery dinners or something. I think that's what they call them.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I think they could use that. If they franchise, they could definitely use that to their advantage as far as like making sure. But then it's, like I said, like a lot of work. It's a lot of work to franchise, and they've kind of. I mean, they're starting to really get it down. They're starting to build some momentum, like on their own.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if I don't know if I am on board with that or not. I might be more on board for like doing an IPO to raise the capital to make sure that they can grow that much. I mean, it talked about like keeping a fine line of 50-50 of stores that they own versus that they franchise. Like, I think that and like you were saying, a lot of successful companies, and like I would regard every Starbucks or every McDonald's or every whatever that I've been to, like held to a pretty high, level of operation. And so you would have to imagine that there's a lot that probably goes in.
Where they could do that.
But
I think my only thing is with them is like they're at this point where they really want to scale pretty quickly. and it's like I don't know if they necessarily can afford to scale quickly without some sort of franchising. That's the only concern I have with like them is I don't know if they have what it takes to do it without it right now.
Or the IPO model. And that's kind of the next question. What are like the disadvantages of franchising, including financial, economic, or organizational consequences? So we kind of talked about organizational consequences, like having the ability to keep that like management structure and like the employee to consumer relationship at a high level, and like how that might be difficult to maintain. But as far as like from the financial or the economic standpoint, like it talked about them bringing that lady on board. I can't remember what her name is, who like had experience bringing that Wild Oats company, like had a successful IPO with Wild Oats, and so like, and maybe they would do both. Yeah, she has the experience. I don't know. I guess maybe I don't fully understand like everything that would go, or what kind of parameters you could have with a franchise
you'd have to have like some kind of franchising agreement
for sure.
Like, we can terminate you if you do this and this and this, because we'd like our restaurants to be held to a certain standard. But with that lady, that's like awesome because she does have that experience, and so it's almost like you can't go wrong because she kind of knows the process.
Yeah.
So, and that's a good way too, because you have the money now, and you don't lose complete like control of how you want your restaurant to be run and the experience you're giving people.
Right. Yeah. Okay. It says, to help inform your choice, you may find it helpful to estimate how much total profit the company would earn annually under a franchise scenario and a company-owned scenario, using the following assumptions. Did you do that by chance?
No, I haven't quite looked at that quite yet. These guys woke up early from their nap when I was reading it. The store opening margin is 80%. Company wants to reach 300 stores by 2006. Trying to see where awesome. So
what does the store operating margin mean?
I think that just means like their return, their margin like is like their return on like, so they make 80% more than they spend, or what they, I think that's pretty much it. So they've gotten their operations down where they're not spending like a ton of money compared to like their sales. I think I could be wrong. I think that's what I think it is. Yeah, so operating margin is a measurement of what proportion of a company's revenue is left over after paying for variable costs of production such as wages and raw materials. So after they've paid everyone and whatnot, it's an 80% margin.
Okay.
So let's see. So I think wouldn't it be that 9 million, like almost $10 million that they have profit there?
Well, that's not their profit. That's their cash.
Yeah.
I think their profit would be their net income. So it says in O2 that it says they had the 688 grand.
Yeah. I saw that, yeah. So they're really not making that much money.
Yeah.
So shoot. I think with that in mind, I think I don't know. I think maybe franchising is the way to go.
So I don't know that this is right. Well, let's see. So I have their net income as being 2.8 million. Let's see. Yeah, 2.8 million in by the time they have the 300 stores. But I mean that's what they would send to retain earnings. That's like, and that doesn't. Yeah, I mean they would. Stuff like this is different, I think, to conceptualize for me at least, because if you look at like their cash and cash equivalents, if you look at like their property and equipment, in 2002 they have $23 million worth of like assets that they could potentially liquidate. Their cash and cash equivalents, you know, they have 10 million. They have all these accounts receivable, inventory. I mean, they have 380 grand just in inventory that they're sitting on, that they're selling. And so it might not seem like the 688 grand a year is very big, and you think about it in those terms, like, and it's really not. But in a bigger scheme of things, they really have, I mean, think about all the storefronts. Think about everything else that they do have. So I just did like that old, I mean, what it looks like. Like if they're earning 688 grand with 58 stores, the equivalent to that, or like that would mean that they would be at 3.56 million with 300 stores. And then I factored in the 80% operating margin, and that's puts them at 2.8. So that's what I have them. I mean, that doesn't factor in like really anything else. I'm trying to see where or even, I don't know if I know how to, and I mean, think about like having to pay back their investors and all that stuff. So that's what they would take after all of that. I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, they have a lot of assets, and they do have a lot of like inventory. So they definitely have to like move. It might be different if they start. I mean, 382,000. That's a lot of for like a restaurant. I feel like that's a lot of inventory. So they definitely got to move it, and yeah, I'm not sure. I kind of like, I don't know. When I read this, I was leaning towards like the franchising, because I think when you put someone that puts up all the money pretty much for the store, so they're buying into the store, and they're and they're running kind of like they're running the operations, but they're under an agreement. I kind of like that, because they're kind of doing the work for you, and they're also paying to do the work for you in a way, because they're paying to open up the store. And I don't know, I like that a lot. But then in the IPO could be the same thing, where I'm just kind of stuck, but which one do I think would be more beneficial, because they both, you can get the money, but you know what I mean? I'm just kind of going back and forth.
Yeah.
So I'm really not sure. I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards franchising, but I could see it both ways.
Well, I guess you could always start and see how it goes. Like, it's not like they have to get married to that idea of that's how they're going to do things from now on, And so with that being the case, like, I don't know, maybe it doesn't hurt to try. And if they can keep like their business model and everything consistent with the way that they want things to be run, like maybe it makes sense to try it. And if it goes terribly, then maybe they bag it,
Yeah. And I know I know someone that owns like Subways, like a ton of them. So from Las Vegas all the way up to Canada, he owns those Subways. And what Subway did with him was, before he could own a single Subway, he had to go learn how to make all the sandwiches, even though he's not going to be making them. He had to learn the whole Subway experience. And so I think and that's kind of part of the franchising agreement that they have. I think you have to have something like that in place, where I think it's a great opportunity, but it's all in the agreement, Yeah. You have to figure out a solid agreement.
Well, and it talked about for the management that they had to go, I think one day every 6 months, they had to go back to the store. Go back to the store and work like on, and to kind of like remember how what they're doing, like why they got into that business and who they're serving. And
yeah, and I think if the terms are written like plain in the agreement, I think franchising could be a good opportunity for them. And I think it helps with cost, but it helps them to actually start making more money.
Well, it helps them a little bit more money, but they're not making a ton of money off of the franchises though.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess they are. If it said they're getting 7% royalties and $35,000 to buy in, so I guess like it said they could expect per store $800,000 annual revenue, or if they spent the additional money on like the premium properties and stuff, like 1.125 million. So royalties on that would be $78,000, 78,750 plus, plus 35,000. So per store, they'd be making about 113,000 each year.
Yeah, and so then if
they could get 20 of those stores, and they don't have to put up a bunch of work, that's like, $2.25 million. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I really understand or exactly how their overall revenue or how their overall scalability will really be affected. Because it said that they needed the 80 million to scale to 300 stores. It didn't say that was a problem or not, though. Like, it didn't say that was really an issue. It just said it would take 80 million to do it with that, or it would take 25 million to do it with franchising. If they franchise, they're obviously not going to make the same return per store that they would if they owned it, but they're not required to have any capital to do that, and they're still making $115K a year if based on the projections that they have.
Yeah, and I think in a way it's even more because it's like if these guys are running successful franchises, it helps them to overall scale more as well, where they can scale on their own a little bit more too. It gets the name more out there. It's kind of interesting because I had never heard about this place until like a couple years ago. My wife really likes it, but like Vegas, we don't have them and stuff like that, so I had never heard of it.
Well, I grew up in Colorado where they started, and so I've seen them around for a while. Yeah, and they're good. I mean, the only time I really go there is if like I'm trying to buy a girl like some chicken noodle soup because she's sick. Is really like the only time I go there. Yeah,
I don't. But, yeah, my wife loves it, and I'm just like it's just noodles, but
yeah,
but that's me.
Yeah. Word, man.
Yep.
What's up?
Yeah, I think you could go a lot of ways with it. I don't think there's like one concrete right or wrong way to do it in this case. So.
Yeah.
Hold this. Okay. Yeah.
Well, cool, man. Right on. Let's enjoy the rest of your week and